Hello, Janksters, and welcome to another edition of the MagicJank podcast, the weekly show where members of Team MagicJank get together and we talk about Magic the Gathering and all the fun stuff that's happening. And naturally, there's hype and product releases barreling down the track at a crazy pace, so we'll touch on some of those. But we also had a pro tour this past weekend, so a lot of crazy news going on there, a lot of stuff in Modern to discuss, because this is the pro tour, following Modern Horizons 3, and holy cow, it made some waves, as Modern Horizons sets are likely to do. So we'll talk about that. So my name's Graham. I go by MH3 on the internet, and I'm joined by two lovely gentlemen. Starting things off, we got Numbskull. How's it going, Numbskull?
Hey,
how we doing, man?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Doing well. And then we also have Carlo, C. Fairverta Jr. in the house. How we doing, man? Good to see you.
What up, everybody?
All right. So before we kind of dive into the topics, I mean, how have you guys been? I know it's been a little bit. I know it's been a busy week for a lot of folks out there. What have you guys been up to? I mean, Carlo, if I'm not mistaken, you actually spent, you were also, there's another convention going on this weekend that you had the privilege of checking out.
Well, as of literally just before this recording, I walked through my door.
We actually didn't expect him to be on the show this week. It actually worked out really nicely.
Make it this week.
Appreciate it.
I went over to Too Many Games Con in Oaks, Pennsylvania. Huge con. Like, I had been to Too Many Games maybe a couple years ago, and I don't remember it being this big. But when I'm telling you, it filled multiple convention halls. It was wild. It wasn't just a Magic Con. There was Magic the Gathering. There was a vendor there who was running events like on-demand Commander Pods and Modern Horizons 3 drafts, and they had other TCGs there too. They did like a special Lorcana event, special One Piece event, so on and so forth. All the same organizers that were doing those things. It was really casual, like in the gaming space. So you could just sit down.
Excellent.
Literally, I went with my buddy Dylan, and we just sat down, had a table, rolled up some Commander decks, and people walked up and were like, "Can we play?" Yeah, of course. Sit down. Come on, let's have a good game.
That's cool.
Casual Commander.
So how many Thassa's Oracles did you see?
I died to Thassa's Oracle once on turn 4. As y'all will be seeing coming up. Oh yeah,
nice
that'll be on the socials, link below, as I recorded that. Not staged, just actual died to turn 4. And so it was a lot of Commander stuff going on. I got to meet Amy, the Amazonian. She was there as a special guest, so I got to say hello to her. I actually was on a panel with Brouhaha, our friend, and Tron is Bad, and Sunny, who is a Pokemon professor and works over at the Queen and Rook Cafe in Philly. And Steven Cop was there, and so we got to do a panel that Brouhaha actually designed based on zero proof gaming. How to respect that gaming space. And I was sort of there as like the prevention professional. I do work in the field of public health, and I do, substance use prevention for youth. So I got to provide that sort of an aspect to the panel. And so it was great to see the amount of people who came out in support of the panel, wanted to listen. We got to meet a bunch of people, some folks who came just to the con for that. So that was nice to see, to really see, the work that Brouhaha really put into making that a thing and the promotion of it and everything like that. So that was a great time. But aside from Magic, there was tons of stuff there. Today I was at a pro wrestling event at the con. I was like, what? We walked in and there were people in cosplay get-ups who were just like fighting each other. And I was like, this is amazing. The main event was Team Rocket versus Grove Street from GTA. Imagine this. Okay,
that's cool.
Wow.
That's cool.
And all of a sudden, during the main event, it was 3 versus 4, and someone in Pikachu cosplay comes out and brings this big stop sign, puts a bunch of firecrackers on the stop sign, and suplexes Giovanni on top of this. Like, this is wild.
That's pretty legit.
That sounds like the finest entertainment money can buy right there.
It was free. It came included with the con. I didn't have to pay anything extra to get in.
Wow. Okay.
And on top of that, the whole crowd was singing the Pokemon theme song at the end. I'm like, where else do you get to see this but too many games gone apparently. So
Amazing.
it was wild. I bought myself some goodies at the end. I got myself a new, for those who are watching on the YouTubes, I got a nice little Kirby hat.
Heck yeah.
Look, and some shirts and stuff like this. They came with lots of goodies. I bought a Modern Horizons 3 collector booster. I got a foil etched Emrakul, so that was nice. So yeah, we were having a good time.
Nice.
Yeah.
Dude, that's
Instead
awesome.
of foil Emrakul?
Foil etched.
Oh
Yeah.
wow. Okay, yeah, you got some stuff.
We did. It was a good time.
That's cool. Man.
Wow. That sounds incredible.
Yeah.
That sounds like fun.
I gotta say, my week definitely is nowhere near as exciting. I don't know, Numbskull, you got any fun updates?
Not now. No, I'm kidding.
Right, yeah. Tough act to follow for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I just kind of have like my regular weekly schedule of like, just like playing Magic like at the LGS and just kind of like making sure that I stay sharp in paper.
Excellent.
So
I'll say because you've got that you've got a pretty big tournament coming up. From now,
yeah. So just regular FNM doing Pioneer every Friday, and then some buddies and I Saturday nights we get together and play Commander. So that's
nice.
Casual Commander.
I'm afraid that sometimes I make it uncasual.
Yeah.
But yes,
time and place for it.
It is casual in nature. I will say that. I think I need to make a different Commander deck with like maybe a little like not so win on turn 5-y.
Oh, so you're playing CDH.
Well,
high powered.
It's like turn 5 or 6. I just like
turn
to do
one
like
land Soul Ring into Arcane Signet.
No, I just do like a little a little Sanguine Bond and Exquisite Blood.
I mean,
combo.
That'd be a classic. All right.
Yeah. Like turn 5, turn 6, get it done.
All right.
But yeah, so we do that every Saturday, and then I also I'm working on putting together my modern deck now, and I've been keeping a pretty close eye on the Pro Tour to figure out which modern deck I'm going to be playing, and I think I am going to try to go with something pretty close to what what the number one deck was after day 2, that Noah Mod deck. So I'm going to work on that. I got 1 Necro Dominance so far. I need to get 3 more. And like we were talking about earlier, Soul Spikes are pretty crazy right now. So waiting for those to like come down a little bit and grab some Soul Spikes, and then we'll go from there. I think I was also telling you guys, like, I don't think that list plays the One Ring, so that's kind of helpful to me.
Sure.
Save me a few $100.
Yeah.
So yeah, just working on that, working on like kind of getting into modern and ramping up for that.
No, I dig it. Well, and so that actually kind of dovetails into discussion of the Pro Tour, and I'd be happy to pick that up. So if anybody out there is not familiar with the deck that Numbskull's referencing, there's a mono blacklist that actually got 2 players into the top 8 that is leveraging Necro Dominance, and which is one of those cards that I'm accepting that I was wrong on. I did not expect it to be that great, to be completely honest. Because bad Necropotence, like how much worse than Necropotence does that have to be? Turns out it's great. Bottom line, it's fantastic with the right support pieces. So Necro Dominance, on your end step, you can pay a certain amount of life. Usually it ends up being your life -1 that you're paying with this deck, drawing an obscene amount of cards, and then using cards like Soul Spike, which allows you to remove 2 black cards in your hand from the game rather than pay its mana cost. So you have to pitch 2 cards to a kind of... I think this was actually in the same cycle as Commandeer. This is the black one, which it deals 4 damage to target creature or player, and you gain 4 life. So if you, in many scenarios, going down 3 cards to deal 4 damage and gain 4 life, that's a pretty lousy rate. In a vacuum. But with the way this deck is operating, cards are cheap. You got plenty of cards. You need life to turn those into cards. And this allows you to do that. And then you also have the Black March from Kamigawa, Neon Dynasty. And let me see if I can pull that up real quick. Yeah, there we go.
Sorrow. Yeah.
March of Wretched Sorrow. So this one, you can pitch cards to reduce its cost by 2, and then you deal X damage to a creature or planeswalker and gain X life. So if there are any creatures on the board, they get obliterated by this thing because you can pitch 6-7 cards to this often, so that X can be incredibly high.
That's nasty.
And you just gain an obscene amount of life, and every 1 point of life that you're gaining is just going to become a card next turn. So it's pretty brutal.
And then you gotta think about how Sorin combos with that too. The new Sorin of House Markov. So however much life you gain, then he just goes face with that for his -1 ability. So it gets pretty when he's like on the Planeswalker side. It gets pretty
the -1. Whew. Fantastic.
So even like that can be like its own OTK right there, which is awesome. If you have enough mana and enough cards in your hand. So it's really legit. And then they use cards like Phyrexian Tower, and then that'll make you some extra mana. So that's fun too. It's almost like it ramps a little bit. So yeah, it gets crazy. And you do that, you hit a good one of those and a couple soul spikes in the same turn, which you can do with that deck. Yeah, you can have a 1-turn kill. So it is coming close to the power level of Nadu. I don't know if it's quite there where it like locks you out the way that the Nadu deck locks you out, because Nadu, it can lock you out on like turn 3, which I think is pretty crazy.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of nuts.
Yeah. So it's close, but it doesn't. Yeah. So maybe that's me saying that it doesn't need to be banned, but Nadu does.
Yeah. But no, that Necrodominance deck definitely looks exceptional. And yeah, Noah Ma was playing it and just absolutely crushed. Getting into the top 8 faster than I've been in 12 rounds, right? Just going undefeated, just walking right in. And then Seth Manfield was also on the deck and got into the top 8 with it. And if Seth Manfield signs off on a deck, it has my attention. So
I think him and Reed Duke were playing the same list because they oddly enough, they were both playing a Shambling Ghast or 2 Shambling Ghast in their decks. Thought that was interesting. That's unusual for the plethora of pretty strong cheap creatures you get that are legal in Modern. I thought that was. I mean, obviously those are just things that you pitch to cast spells, and they're just cheap, maybe like cheap blockers or whatever.
Cheap blockers are targets for the March of Wretched Sorrow if the opponent doesn't have creatures, that kind of thing. But like,
so I thought that was interesting. So that's where the list differed a little bit. You know what I mean?
Let me tell you, Numbskull, I am not surprised that you were interested in playing the mono black deck.
Dude, I was
at all. I'm so shocked.
As long as there's a good mono black deck in a format, I will be interested. I'll just put it that way. Because until this came about, I knew that Coffers was a thing, and I was like prepared to give that a shot. Because I know Coffers can go crazy, but I know that it's like a little bit below the power level of some of the strongest stuff. And then once I started seeing these decks, I was like, all right, we're gonna do this. And equally, I was actually like this time last year, the one that interested me was like Rakdos Scam. But I think that would have been even more expensive, given some of the other stuff that it has in the deck, and then like the extra lands and whatnot. So only having to buy a couple fetches for it, and I think I might have to get a Phyrexian Tower, which is unfortunate, but I think I'll save money on the lands by sticking to one color too, which is nice.
Yeah. Marshflats, though, arguably was like a fetch that was very cheap to buy. And Bloodstained Mire just got reprinted with Polluted Delta.
Yeah. So I think which one did I think I bought like 1 or 2 Marshflats, and I have like a Verdant Catacombs, and none of them were more than $15, which I guess for fetch lands is pretty good.
Oh, that's excellent. Yeah.
So I'm not the fetch lands I'm not too concerned with that. And the decks don't run a ton of them, so that's perfectly fine with me.
Yeah.
Not having to fix your mana is pretty handy.
Not having to fix it, and having the easy triggers for Fatal Push, because the decks do run Fatal Push too, which is cool. So that's helpful, and I think Fatal Push is great. It's cheap removal for Nadu, with your fetches.
Oh heck
yeah.
No, absolutely. But yeah, then of course the other deck that we've already mentioned, because how can you talk about this tournament without bringing it up, is Nadu. Nadu Winged Wisdom had an absolutely, I mean, it had an adoption rate, like I think it was more than 40% of the meta, and it won just constantly. It was destroying. So it's Was it 40%, 30%, whatever the case may be? A lot. Or no, it was a quarter.
Yeah.
Whatever. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I'm sorry.
I think
Professional
it was like
podcaster, everybody.
27% or something like that.
It was, something like that. But it was a disproportionate number. It was a shocking number.
Absolutely.
And on top of that, it still had a really, really solid win rate. So it was clearly, I'm not going to try to remember the numbers. They were good. The deck's good, y'all. And when you have disproportionate, representation like that, it's not uncommon for the numbers to be a little lower than the deck would necessarily deserve, because you have people, because you're going to end up having more mirror matches. You maybe have people who didn't have as much time to play with the deck, more likely to just they'll get losses that they wouldn't otherwise might not. But regardless, in this case, it absolutely crushed. Of the top 8, 5 of them were Nadu decks, and the top 4 was all Nadu. And then Simon Nielsen ended up taking the whole thing down. Congratulations to Simon Nielsen for taking down their first pro tour, the first number 1 spot on a pro tour, despite a whole plethora of top 8 finishes.
And player recently. Of the year last year too.
Yeah,
so it's not like he came out of nowhere. He really. Yeah, I would say it's definitely time. It's because I think we've seen him. We've seen him in the finals at least a couple times in the last few years, and he just feels like he never quite got there. So it was nice to see that.
Absolutely. I gotta be honest, when I heard that, like on the coverage, like his first Pro Tour victory, I was like, wait, no, that can't be right.
Yeah, you had to. Yeah,
wait,
you
really?
Had to like check their math on that.
Right. Yeah, but that shows you just how prestigious winning a Pro Tour is. Like these folks who have been excellent at the game for so long, that's still something that, because we have 4 a year, and there's only one champion. So
exactly, yeah.
And
then apparently, I think today was also his birthday, so that's kind of
it
cool
was.
Too. And they said he turned 30, and I was like, wait, I'm older than Simon Nielsen, and I was like, okay, I need to get my act together. I need to get ready to start at least get on a pro tour.
Can I interest you in a Nadu deck?
No.
Because one way to get your act together
that is a way.
The broken cards they print into these Modern Horizon sets.
Yeah, that is a decent way. Now just send me some Necro Dominance. Send me 3 more of those. I think
there you go.
That'll get me started.
That's actually so. I find both these decks really funny because they both generate these crazy, silly combo engines. But with the Necro deck, you just draw an obscene amount of cards, and then you kill your opponent on the spot by having drawn those cards. It's very straightforward in how you're doing it, and I really appreciate that. The Nadu combo loops that you have to generate, like one thing you'll notice that there were a couple of decks that had Thassa's Oracle in it, but when you heard folks like Simon Nielsen or Ely Cassis talk about the deck, they did not have Thassa's Oracle in it.
There's some nuance.
You don't need it if you understand how the loops work. Yeah. Because you generate a scenario where you have Sylvan Safekeeper, which I also want to say, I love the fact that Sylvan Safekeeper was such a popular card because it was originally Ole Rade's invitational card. So the very first.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
Yeah, and he was there competing in the event.
Yeah, he got pretty far. I think he almost got into the top 8 then. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was like a tiebreaker scramble at the last minute for he didn't quite make it, but almost. He did a great job. And so for his invitational card to all of a sudden be like part of this crazy combo, I think that's awesome. So that was a fun little story. But yeah, so what you end up doing is with Nadu, you get Shuko online, and Shuko equips for 0, so you can just, for every creature you have, you get 2 Nadu triggers. And then you get the Broodhatch Nantuko, which every time a land hits the battlefield, you make an insect, which is 2 fresh triggers. And then the lands are coming in tapped, so you end up basically drawing your entire deck if you can get this online. And then you can use cards like Boseiju, who endures, and Otawara to blow up your opponent's entire mana base and bounce all of their permanents by using the Sylvan Safekeeper to sacrifice all of your lands, use Endurance to reset your deck, keep the Nadu triggers going. It's insane. Honestly, it's kind of ridiculous.
I saw like some mirrors where it's just like. Like sometimes the person had to explain what was about to happen, and sometimes they didn't. And he's just like, all right, well, I'm just gonna Boseiju all your stuff. Do you concede? And and the guy was like, yeah, that sounds about right. And
Yeah,
I think we even saw in the finals, it was game 4 when Simon won, I believe. It's turn 3, which is when the deck goes off. And the opponent had all their mana tapped and nothing on the board. And it was like, if you can do it, you're gonna win. And I think Sam Party, like, he saw Simon go off and he was like, okay, yep, you got it. Stuck out his hand. Congratulations, man.
It was kind of fun watching like later game 2 and game 3, like the top 8s, because none of those players forced anybody to play it out. Like the moment they started going, they were like, "Yep, I don't have it. You got it."
Yeah.
And if it was not the match deciding game, they would ask like, "Okay, can I see your deck to like see how you sideboarded?" Because the combo does reveal, and so like they were just sure, of course, and that was it. But like there was no need to go through all that. Like we know how this ends. Yeah, you got it.
and I think even seeing how the combo goes, I think that we're still like in such a early time of this deck being a thing that I'm not convinced that, like, and of course I'll give them all the credit in the world because they're all professionals, but I'm not convinced that everybody even really knows how to sideboard in the mirror yet for this deck. And like they're still figuring it out. They're still figuring out different combo lines to loop out and whatever. And I'm sure people are gonna discover like other things that this deck can do that people haven't even like looked at yet. Because like the combo loops you were talking about, it felt like there's a combo loop for the mirror, and then there's almost like a combo loop in that deck for every matchup that you have.
Yeah,
I believe it.
And it's part of, I think, what makes it so hard to beat is that I think one of the only decks that did match up well against it was Javier's deck. That Jest Sky kind of control with Flage, because Flage is really good against Nadu, I think. I think and he built it for that because I think he knew how many people were going to be on that. But so I think that it's going to be, and I think mono black to a degree because of the good removal that it has, and hand disruption like we were talking about. I think that can be tailored to deal with Nadu as well. So it is a little crazy that like the meta effectively is Nadu and then decks that attempt to deal with Nadu. That's kind of what we were left with, I feel like. And I know the guy, there was a guy playing Gruul Prowess and he had a way to deal with it too. Harsh Mentor. That was cool. That was some cool tech that I didn't expect to see. I didn't know what the card did until I saw it. But yeah, it shocks you every time you do a Nadu thing, which is
every time you activate the equipment, it blasts you. I like that.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. So that actually like slows you down, and it slows you down against a deck that can beat you as early as turn 2. So it's actually like I think they won a couple games, a couple matches against Nadu. They almost snuck into the top 8, but I think they just couldn't get there in game 3. Of their winning in, but they almost snuck in there as well. So they had a good performance with that Gruul Prowess deck, I will say. Yeah. Once again, another thing, Gruul Prowess, arguably very competitive in every format. And I think that's interesting. I think that's
for sure
something to be said for that.
Interestingly enough, I've been seeing a lot of Harsh Mentor and Magic Online lately because of the Nadu deck. So even when I was at Too Many Games, there was some vendors that had them in their binders for $1, and I'm like, I'm just gonna buy them all.
You should
give up a couple of those.
That's a good idea.
and
it's a rare, at least anyway, right?
It's cheap, y'all. If you don't have Harsh Mentor and you can pick it up cheap, in the event that they don't do anything about Nadu, get them because it's $1. But and I'm normally not somebody to like talk about controversy at all, really, on this podcast. And like, I don't also want to be like the beacon because everybody and their mother is going to be like a beacon over the next week where, the YouTube thumbnails, including this one might have like Nadu blasted on it for some clickbait. I
don't know what you're talking about.
But like...
I was doing things for views. How
in the
world does
that?
Honestly,
don't you catch this in R&D? And I'm not trying to put down anybody that works in R&D at all. At Wizards, I think they do a fantastic job for the majority of the part. But like, how do you miss this? Like, you're designing a set that's going to severely impact this format. Like, Modern does not look the same as at all.
True.
Like it did over a month ago. It
True.
doesn't look the same. And how you don't know that this is a possibility when you spoil the card, the entire internet knows within an hour that the card is broken from not just one card, 2 cards, maybe 3 cards makes this particular card broken. And the stance is we wait until after the Pro Tour to see what happens. Fine. But then take action now, because Modern RCQ season starts after this next one.
Yep.
And it's not going to be enjoyable traveling to events to play against this. It wasn't enjoyable to play against Grief Scam. I particularly stopped going to play Paper Modern because it made no sense for me to use my time to drive to an event, to die to Thoughtseize plus Grief, and I can't play the game. It's just not worth it. That's not an enjoyable play experience. It's not an enjoyable experience to watch those games on coverage. I don't know all Magic players' thoughts on watching the coverage on the Nadu mirrors, but if what y'all are saying is correct and it went, here's my Nadu, do you have an answer? No, okay, scoop next game. That's not great coverage. It's just not great to watch that. The commentators can't get a full game to even like explain what's going back and forth, except, he's got it. They got it. You know,
there were a couple of times on coverage where players would get going, and I got to give a huge shout out to Cedric Phillips. At one point, he actually made a little ditty. They all did a great job with it. But you're right, it's not an easy task to like make this interesting.
That was the thing. It was like it was actually like and like you were saying, Ham, the commentators, I think over the whole weekend, they all did a great job.
A huge shout out to the coverage team.
Riley, Cedric, Monty, and who's the other guy? Corey
Baumeister.
They all did a great job, but it felt like they felt as if they had to fill the air with banter and whatever, some type of entertaining anything, because it was just this bant Nadu. Okay, we explained how it works. Everybody knows how it works by now. We're on turn 3. Is he gonna win? And then it was unfortunate because at some points, not to say that they were getting off topic, but at some points it felt like that we weren't actually focused on Magic, which I think that can be bad. Because that's literally what we're doing, and we're doing it at like the highest level other than like the World Championship. So this is like the highest level of competition, and that is and I think you have to ask yourself the question, is that the product that you want to put out into the world? That's something every creator asks when they put something out. Is this what I want to put into the world?
Like, would this card have been more fair if it was literally just a 3/3 that dies to Lightning Bolt?
Like, make it better.
You already knew you had Galvanic Discharge, which is a very powerful card, right? We know that the energy deck is certainly good. And the energy deck struggles to survive in a field of Nadu. So if you want to bring energy to the forefront in the Modern format and say, here's all these new tools, go at it, how can you do that when you're just like dead on turn 3 or whatever? And I'm not saying that there aren't other Modern decks that are guilty of the trying to kill you by turn 3-4. I'm very aware that the format is fast. The cards are powerful. You know what you're doing. Yeah. But like, there gets to a point where the game just isn't fun to play, and you want more players to come out to play in RCQs to help grow the paper Magic scene, to continue to have Modern thrive on Magic the Gathering Online. So why do this again? Like after we experienced like the Hogak ordeal years ago, why do that? Why create a similar situation? And there's no way you could tell me R&D didn't see that this was going to happen with this card, for the amount of testing you have to do when designing these cards. And you know, it was kind of striking for me to hear on the ban restricted announcement Magic stream recently, where they were asking just casual Q&A between Twitch chat and questions that might have been brought up amongst Wizards just for explanation on why they took action against or didn't take action against certain cards. And I don't play Legacy, but the one line that really struck with me in that stream was all the questions that were coming from Twitch chat that asked, why didn't you ban Grief in Legacy? And before Nadu, like I told you, I'm not wasting my time to show up to a Modern event to get Grief scammed, right? Just not enjoyable. So you already know that card is a problem in other formats outside of Modern. And they asked them, why didn't you ban Grief in Legacy? And the explanation was, well, the person who does all of our testing for Legacy told us to ban Grief, and we didn't listen to them. So why do you have somebody testing Legacy then? If they're telling you that these cards are too powerful in the formats as they exist, and they say you have to take action, why don't you do it? And then the follow-up question in Twitch chat was, can you do a public poll right now? And of course the answer was no, we can't do a public poll. We know, because we already know what the answer is going to be.
The referendum for the What if all bans were referendum? That would be hilarious.
And I agree. It's not right to take like a public poll, because obviously it's never going to go your way when that happens. Yeah. But like, can we just take the correct choice of action and make the formats enjoyable? Like, and you know, this is coming from someone who my content is focused on Standard, and it's focused on Standard because it's the most enjoyable format in my eyes. And it's the most fun to play. It's the most healthy format, in my opinion. We need more for Standard. Hello, if you are listening to this podcast and you have anything to do with decisions on making Standard events, we need more of them in paper. Give us a reason to come out to continue to play this format. We're going to get to some Standard discussion in a little bit. But
we absolutely will.
Like, you hear the community. If you want the community's response, the community's input, they give it to you constantly. And, you know, the people who are playing the Grief Scam decks would be mad if you ban those cards. What it does sound like, though, is people won't be upset if you take Nadu out of the format now. Even the people who are playing the decks,
I think even the Nadu
we don't mind
like,
if you take this out. You had pros saying before this, play with this card now because you ain't going to be playing with it in a couple weeks. If the people who play the game professionally are telling you this card is too strong to exist in this format, it probably shouldn't exist. I don't know what they got to do and how quickly they're going to take action on this, but hopefully they do something.
I think one of the things that I would feel if I was playing it competitively and I knew that I was going to go up against the Nadu deck a bunch of times is I would start to feel as if skill is to an extent being removed from the equation of me beating the other person, because if we're playing the same level of brokenness and because that's about all we can do, then it's just going to come down to who pops off first. And we both have proven that we know how to do it. You have to pay attention to the lines, but it's not like it doesn't. The deck isn't often forced to make very difficult decisions. You just have to sequence things properly. So I don't want to say it doesn't take any skill to pilot the deck, because it's modern, like it always does, but it can easily turn into it could even be just like play draw dependent, and modern usually isn't a format that is play draw dependent, in my opinion. It's not known for that, and that's part of the reason that people like it, because of the power level that it has, where you can catch up, but you can't catch up to this. So I don't disagree with you at all.
And you know, I have a modern tournament I have to actually play in 2 weeks. The MTGO creator program. We're having
modern.
Our next challenge is modern. And so am I playing with a busted card in 2 weeks or not? Inquiring minds want to know, because either I got to learn the play pattern or I got to prepare to lose to the play pattern in 3 turns. You know.
Also, isn't it funny that they actually published a ban and restricted announcement like last week to announce no changes?
That was something.
Well, I'm okay with them not banning anything prior to the Pro Tour. That's not what I'm getting at. I think it's hilarious that they actually wrote up an entire ban and restricted announcement instead of simply saying, we'll be delaying the ban and restricted announcement until after the Pro Tour.
Yeah.
You know, like,
And then they went to pretty great depths to explain themselves too, which is like,
which I love them being transparent, and I would rather they give us more information than less. Totally. So don't get me, I'm not mad that they gave us a detailed explanation of their reads on the current formats. I'm glad they did that. That's great. So it wasn't a bad thing. I just think the timing on that's kind of funny.
On that ban restricted announcement, and I guess this is going to like segue us into talking a little bit about some new cards that are going to be coming to Standard. But on that ban restricted announcement, they did address Standard, and they said that there were 2 cards in particular that they were looking at in terms of should they ban this before Standard rotates. And the first card was Atraxa Grand Unifier. And is this card too strong? Who knows?
Ban it.
The other one was Knight Errant of Eos in the Boros Convoke deck. And if they were questioning those 2 cards, they must know, in accordance with their R&D testing, that even with Bloomburrow cards entering Standard, that those 2 cards were still too powerful. Meaning that there's still some type of Knight Errant of Eos deck, so Convoke doesn't really lose much. It lost Voldaren Epicure. Very easily replaceable. I'm sure there's going to be some other 1-drop that we can play, because it's totally how it is. And... And, you know, they mentioned Atraxa, and Atraxa was being played in a couple different Standard decks. Number 1 was Domain, which you would think that Domain would rotate as a deck out of Standard. But spoiler alert, and we've probably talked about this, I know I certainly have a couple times.
Oh, yeah, no.
I don't think Domain is going away with Standard's rotation. In fact, I think it still remains very strong, because we have the Surveil lands that are basic land typed. We have Leyline of the Guild Pact, if you want to play that card. True. And the 5-color version that was playing Ancient Cornucopia is much stronger than the Topiary Stomper version was. In that you were able to play Pillage the Bog, Lightning Helix, Ill-Timed Explosion. You can still play Sunfall and Herd Migration.
Like standard
all of that still exists. So what? Your turn 1, your land came into play tapped no matter what. Turn 2, you play a basic... or you play another card tapped, still fine. The only downside is that Leyline Binding gets a little worse, right? So what, I can't play it on 2. I can certainly still play it on 3, and for 1 mana at that. All of those cards still exist. So something tells you, in accordance with your R&D testing, that those decks are going to be very powerful. So will something from Bloomburrow be able to answer that? Well, we don't have a lot of information on Bloomburrow cards, though previews start soon, because we get Bloomburrow in 4 weeks, y'all, which means in 3 weeks is the streamer event. So we'll get to test all of these new cards. So in 3 weeks, we're going to be bombarded with these previews. We got some out of MagicCon Amsterdam, a little bit.
A little bit. A lot of Duskmourn, a little bit of Bloomburrow.
That was interesting. I didn't make sense to me. But and I think while we're on the topic of like banning stuff, and how there wasn't a ban with like Amalia not being banned in Pioneer, but then like shortly thereafter we get notified of a card that is coming that's just going to shut it down. I thought that was pretty interesting. The card in Duskmourn, I forget the name of it, but it's like if it's dealt damage, it deals that much damage, and if it deals damage this way, that player can't gain life the rest of the game, which I think is so extreme.
Screaming Nemesis. Yes.
Let's start by talking about the Duskmourn previews.
And there's actually a Duskmourn preview that I think is going to help the Domain deck as well, so we can kind of dovetail on that as well. But yeah, Screaming Nemesis is brutal. This card is a 3/3 with haste for 3, which already rock solid. And then whenever it is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to any other target. If a player is dealt damage this way, they can't gain life for the rest of the game. So any damage dealt to this doesn't care about the owner of the source. You get to pick wherever that redirect damage goes.
You can deal the damage yourself.
You could absolutely ping this and blast your opponent in the face. And or if they chump block it with a 1/1. It's like they give up their right to gain life for the rest of the game.
That's really something.
That's brutal.
It's a great counterplay to the Domain deck in Standard. If it still exists, it means that your Atraxa won't gain life when it attacks. It means your Ancient Cornucopias won't be able to gain you life when they trigger. And that means that deck needs to answer this card ASAP. And there are answers in Standard. You could play Long Goodbye, you could play Lightning.
Oh yeah, there's all kinds of stuff.
There's tons of stuff. But the fact that you have to worry about this card or your game life strategy to keep you afloat until the end of the game doesn't work anymore is important.
Probably really good in mirror matchup, especially if you're both playing like Cornucopia.
Yeah.
Because Cornucopia was keeping people in games and when they shouldn't have been, and now now you'll get punished for, you know. But yeah, so that's really good. And then I did think it was interesting that, you know, we're kind of what you were saying, Carlo. Like, I think what might happen is like, because I think that Domain is going to lose stuff and it might get, I don't want to say handicapped. The power level might go down a little bit. We're saying like it's not going to be as fast, but Boros seems like it's probably not going to lose anything that's that relevant. And so I think maybe in Standard I could see Knight Errant being banned before Atraxa.
Yeah, I could see that.
And like maybe they let it go, and after Bloomburrow comes out and see how things are going, is Domain still a thing? Whatever, you know, and then because we said it's in August and we're going to get cards in end of July. So I guess it gives it time to kind of see what's going to happen. But it seems like Duskmourn is just like a answer everything set so far.
Duskmourn looks pretty juiced. Floored. I mean, they tend to lead with some with the goods, up front with these kind of big first looks.
Sure.
On the subject of Domain, there's one other card that I think it is interesting to me that Topiary Stomper is going to be leaving us on Arena late July, I think early August in paper. And when Duskmourn rolls around in October, September, whenever we're getting end of September. Man, that is wild how fast these are firing.
Yeah,
dude. We get Overlord of the Hauntwoods, which is a 6/5 for 5, or it has a new ability called Impending, and it has Impending 4. And so that means if you pay the impending cost, because this is an enchantment creature, by the way, if you pay the impending cost, it enters as an enchantment, and it is not a creature, and it has a number of counters on it equal to its impending number, in this case 4. And then each turn at your end step, you remove one of those impending counters. I think they're time counters. And so as a result, they're time counters. So you're effectively suspending it on the battlefield. So it is on the battlefield. It can still be disenchanted, any of that jazz, but it's still kind of it's not doing its full thing. It doesn't have stats yet.
Yeah, well, I think it still has ETB though.
It does, and the ETB on this one, Overlord of the Hauntwoods, whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, create a tapped colorless land token named Everywhere. That is every basic land type.
So I guess there's your fixing for Domain.
There's your Stomper.
Maybe that's what they were worried about and that maybe that's why they think it'll attempt to stick around.
Yeah.
Now, granted, it is. I guess no, because it happens on 3. You get the Everywhere.
Turn 3, you drop it, and you have a
you effectively have Domain on 3.
Mm-hmm.
Now it is.
Yeah, if you have this, you are guaranteed to get a full Domain on 3, no matter what.
But thankfully, that comes in tap, so that you don't get to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't get to just binding in addition to that, which would be ridiculous, I think. Well, I guess if you had Spelunking out, would it?
If you had
it would untap that,
it would untap it. Yeah.
That would be that. So, like, I mean, you might have to wait till turn 4, which,
Yeah, there are ways, but but it's just when you think about how Topiary Stomper works in the Domain list, like this is it, except the land you're getting isn't a basic. It's in fact perfect.
I don't know.
Also, notably though, it doesn't take a land out of your deck, right?
That is true.
Whereas
and you don't shuffle.
Stomper would help. Yeah, it would help like filter through your deck. But it still lets you play turn 5 whatever you want, or it lets you play turn 4 ill-timed explosion with a tapped surveil land.
Yeah.
It lets you still cast on turn 5 Archangel of Wrath kicked once. So Domain gets to keep its play patterns. This, I mean, granted, we're talking 2 sets from now.
Right? Yes. So no, this isn't right. Yeah. It'll come on faster than you think, but it's not gonna. It's not right around the corner. Yeah.
We're about 3 months.
Now it might be. I mean, I love that the card does what it does.
Mm-hmm.
It is like kind of underwhelming that it is just a 6/5 with no additional stats.
Sure.
You know, when you get to attack with it, you get to keep getting lands, but at that point, you're talking 4 turns later or less if there's something that's removing time counters in standard, which at this point probably looks like there will be in this set if we're talking about multiple cards with time counters on them.
Right.
You know, but it's just a 6/5. You know, it does do the thing it does with the land, but then it's just plain 6/5. The game's probably over before this enters naturally, I would assume. But the powerful impending effect is powerful.
Yeah. Yeah,
the plus side is you lose Farewell from standard, so you got to worry about somebody like casting Farewell and then also exiling this thing.
Yeah, I mean, this not being a creature might be a bonus actually if you're providing pressure and your opponent has to wipe, because then all of a sudden it might, because when it starts becoming a creature, it was already on the battlefield, so it doesn't have haste, but it's not affected by summoning sickness by the time it can attack if it was impending. So. So that's one of those things where your opponent might have to, Sunfall you, but then all of a sudden this thing wakes up and can swing in to maybe close it out. So it's an interesting design and kind of a cool spot to be in. So another card that I want to talk about is one that I think is like possibly, I don't know if it's genius or if it's complete, it's either the complete presence or complete lack of self-awareness. We have Fear of Missing Out. Is now the name of a Magic card that is going to be coming out in Duskmourn.
Interesting. It's a nightmare.
Yeah, it's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare. So it's an enchantment creature. It's a 2/3 for 1 and a red. When it enters, when it enters the battlefield, or just enters now, we're not having to template the battlefield anymore. Got to trim words wherever you can these days. When it enters, you discard a card and draw a card. Notably. It's not a May. You have to do that, but it is templated in the same way as cards like Charming Scoundrel, where if you don't have a card to discard, you just don't discard, but you do still draw. So that's pretty cool. And then it has Delirium. That's right, we're getting Delirium in standard, y'all. Whenever Fear of Missing Out attacks for the first time each turn, if there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, untap target creature. After this phase, there is an additional combat phase.
Pretty good.
Sounds sweet to me.
I mean,
I don't know if I remember any, like obviously red cards do that, but like, I don't know if I remember any red card that was only 2 mana that did it.
Exactly. Yeah. And that is pretty notable because a lot of red cards in the past, they either weren't creatures themselves and they cost like 4 or 5 and did that, or they were creatures and cost I think a minimum was like 6. You had a couple of, there was like Godo and Morag and a few of those that could do it, but they were expensive and it took a while to get them started. But yeah, the fact that there's only 2 mana, you can get additional combat phases is kind of gnarly. The one power level detail, the one knob that they turn on this that I think is really notable that I think people will miss when they first read this, I know I did, is you only untap 1 creature prior to the next combat phase. Most of these effects, you untap all of your creatures before your next combat phase. In this case, it's only 1. So that gives you an opportunity to be a little crafty with your first attack, see how your opponent blocks, and then maybe, get something else into the mix. It also makes Vigilance significantly more valuable.
True.
Yeah, there are a lot of ways that you can kind of work with that, but that is a limiting factor for its power level that you don't often see in multiple combat phase
and
effects like this.
We are talking a card again 2 sets in advance.
True.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have I introduced you to my friend Slick Shot Show Off?
I believe we have met. Yes.
A bunch of buffs from me casting non-creature spells and then untapping it and getting an additional combat phase.
And those spells might help you achieve Delirium.
I mean, you might be on something there, yeah. So it seems good.
I don't know if this is actually a thing, since we're talking 2 sets in advance, but it looks like to me that this Burb and this Nightmare will get along pretty well.
Yeah.
Holy cow, yes. Yep.
And I know that I should have looked at the list that you had, Ham, and
good.
Try to throw my hat in for this one. Of course, it's the good black card. During Tenacity.
Oh, yeah.
I know
I would
we
love
were
to talk about
talking about
Tenacity.
sanguine bond effects before we started here. That is that's what it's all about for me right there.
Enduring Tenacity is like, so it's a 4/3 enchantment creature Snake Glimmer, which is a hell of a type line. And it's 2 black for a 4/3. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. It's the Veto Thorn of the Duskmourn effect. Mm-hmm. And when it dies, if it was a creature, returned to the battlefield under its owner's control as an enchantment and not a creature. So, dude.
They basically took Veto and Sanguine Bond, slapped them together, and said it starts as this, and then it turns into this when if it were to die, and gave it better stats and made it cost a mana value that's right in between the two. It's they literally, you know what I mean? Like it's like the cards morphed almost,
right?
I think it's great. I think it's so good.
And people are going to have so much trouble getting rid of this thing. And on top of that, if they don't kill it, it's a 4/3 body. So
exactly.
You can still actually, like, this thing can still, it can trade up favorably as a blocker if you need to. It can apply pressure, puts your opponent on the clock. Like, it does all the right things.
Added to the plethora of good black 4 mana creatures. There's so many good ones right now. Archfiend, Sholdred, Hostile Investigator, and now that's in the conversation too, I think. So really happy about that. Gets around Destroy Evil, which is interesting too.
I suppose it does, doesn't it?
That's one thing that I like about Hostile Investigator.
Actually, no, it doesn't.
Or is that going to rotate?
No, Destroy Evil can break an enchantment.
Oh,
and even as a creature, it's an enchantment.
Yeah, you're right.
It does dodge the toughness mode, but
you're right. You're right. But I guess it would still come back as an enchantment. So hopefully, maybe they have another Destroy Evil.
Yeah, but they need 2 exactly.
Yeah.
So speaking of enchantment, how are we feeling about the new enchantment border being the Nyx border from now on? I think that starts with Duskmourn.
Okay. Yeah, because I guess Overlord is like that too, isn't it? Yeah, that makes I know what you're saying. Yeah, that's interesting.
So in the past, for enchantment creatures, they added the like constellation border. That was something that we've seen in the past, and they are doing that moving forward for like all enchantment creatures, regardless of what plane they're on. Even though that's very much a Theros kind of aesthetic, but they're also putting it on all enchantments moving forward as well. So they're not necessarily just enchantment creatures, but
I see it on another one here. Nowhere to Run. Okay, yeah,
and so that's one of those where it's it doesn't change the gameplay in any meaningful way, but it helps kind of with the just a quick visual. It makes the board state a little easier to read, which, given how complex things are getting, I think that's a good change. I like it a lot. It also is going to help distinguish between enchantments and artifacts. Oh, actually, you know what? It doesn't look like it's for all of the Duskmourn enchantments. I think that change is actually coming with Foundations, which is a format that we're going to be talking about later.
Oh,
yeah, because they're also ley lines in Duskmourn, and they don't.
Oh, I did see ley line.
Oh, right. Yes,
the ley line of hope that they've previewed doesn't seem to have that. But yeah.
But then also it like, you know that a ley line's a ley line, I guess. You know.
Yeah, I mean? we know ley lines.
Yeah, that's like, okay, well, you have a ley line.
We all just like quiver at the sound of the word ley line now.
Is
it either means preview panel mono greened out or our graveyard's on?
When you're playing in paper and your opponent's like, I have pre-game effects, and you're like, here we go.
God damn it!
You're like, here we go.
Come on, serum powder. Be serum powder just once, please.
and you wait to see which one it is, and and then you see it hit, and you're like, do I want to keep playing? You have to ask yourself if you want to keep doing this right now. Yeah.
So, excuse me, I forgot to bring mine. Apologies.
It's funny that you say that. When I was watching the preview panel and they're like, ley lines are back, my immediate reaction was, no.
Not again.
Why?
I mean, hey, at least they didn't reprint what is it, Ley Line of Sanctity? Because that one is just that one's just like, hey, you just can't do anything to me.
Yeah. Well, and the thing about ley lines specifically is they have to have a powerful enough effect that you want to include them in your deck, And it needs to be, but it can't like just win you the game for 0. Like they have to, so they have to kind of draw this line where the effects need to be really specific, and helpful in very narrow cases, but not great in others. And they've done a good job with some leyline designs recently, and I've liked kind of what they've done. And in Duskmourn, they're bringing us Leyline of Hope. I believe they did confirm that there will be one in each color. We haven't seen the others yet, but the white one is Leyline of Hope, 2 white, but you paid 0 if it's in your starter. If you would gain life, you gain that much life plus 1 instead. And as long as you have at least 7 life more than your starting life total, creatures you control get +2/+2.
It's fine. It's not like crazy, you know?
Yeah, it's a cleric class plus the static from Righteous Valkyrie kind of getting together.
It's like fine.
Yeah. In the life gain decks, this is going to be really nice. Outside of them, this is not a consideration.
Not very playable, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it might turn into one of those where like one of the ley lines in a particular color is like way better than all the other ones. Like the invoked, obviously Invoke Despair was like the craziest.
Yeah. Well, and even with
like
past ley lines, I mean the last core set ley line cycle that we got, the green one, Leyline of Abundance, is like 1,000 times better than the others, meaning no disrespect meaning I love Leyline of Anticipation, but let's be real, like this thing is like,
Leyline of
the
reason this card had to be banned.
It got banned in a bunch of formats, and rightfully so. Yeah. Well, banned in Pioneer anyway, Pioneer Explorer, and rightfully so, because it was gnarly.
Yeah.
It's like, what if every Llanowar elf was a double Llanowar elf? Like, could we not?
Yeah, the extra mana is pretty crazy.
Yeah. Super ramp for 0 is kind of nuts. Yeah. But anyway.
And I think it'll be super fun. And there's here, let me go to the next one.
There's one other card from Dusk. Duskmourn spoiled a lot of cards.
Yeah.
There's one more design that, especially because we have Numbskull on the pod, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Doomsday Excruciator. The reason this card is notable, there's a lot of reasons. Not the least of which is its mana cost. I'm going to say this in the way that I've been kind of training myself to template mana cost, so just strap in, everybody. This thing costs black. So that's 6 black.
Yeah, that was 6. Yeah, you got it.
And so get your Nykthos ready, everybody. It's a 6/6 flyer for 6 black. When it enters, if it was cast, each player exiles all but the bottom 6 cards of their library face down. At the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card. So this... It's a Doomsday effect, which if you're not familiar with Doomsday, it allows you to search, I believe it's like 6 cards, and you remove everything else from your library except those 6 cards. You shuffle them, and that's that. Which, combo enabler, crazy powerful, like really, really good. This one, you're getting a similar effect in that you're losing all but 6 cards out of your deck. However, you don't get to pick the 6 cards that are left.
Yeah.
Which is massive, but you're also hitting your opponent's deck.
Yeah.
Of all but 6 cards.
That's noteworthy.
And this thing has you drawing an extra card each turn. So notably, if you cheat this in and you don't get that ETB, like if you reanimate it, you're still drawing an extra card every turn, and you have a 6/6 flyer. That still seems worth the price of admission in my book.
Let me introduce you to my friend Insatiable Avarice.
Yeah.
Outlaws of Thunder Junction. That for 3 black says target player draws 3 cards and loses 3 life. And that card is a joy to play.
I'm here for this. Let's go.
Yeah. Just make your opponent draw the rest of their. It's almost like a mono black mill combo in a way.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely what it tees up.
And then there's the Tiny Bones joins up that when the legendaries hit. Those make you mill. So it could be. I mean, we're talking about mono black mill, but you only have to make them mill 6 cards, which actually might not be that difficult to either make them draw or mill. Might not be that difficult to do. You know, if you can untap and if you
certainly set up correctly,
and
you're able to play this, and you have like Insatiable Avarice plus like, I don't know, let's say 2 legendary creatures in your hand, your opponent loses because then they can't draw. Well, they will draw, but then they'll lose. They don't have any more cards left in their deck. So if you do a nice, sweet setup with this card, it can be done. Downside is you got to hope your opponent doesn't have things to make you draw more cards.
True.
Indeed. Yep.
And I guess there's got to be something coming that's going to let you shuffle your graveyard into your library too, and I think that might be a way to bail yourself out. If we get something like that. Also, not to be omitted, this is a 6/6 flyer.
Yes.
So
well, and I think
it has its own clock built in, outside of the cards.
100%. I love it when they print big flyers with crazy advantages. This kind of reminds me of Arcfiend of the Dross, because everybody was thinking all these crazy combo things to do with Arcfiend of the Dross, and it's like, or you could just attack with a 6-power flyer. Like that's all.
Just beat them to death with it. Yeah.
This card combo is great with the combat phase. Let me tell you what, it's great.
Yeah.
Highly recommend.
Well, and I love that we get another good demon, because it felt like we didn't. Other than Archfiend, there wasn't that great of a demon in Standard either. Right. So it's nice to. I don't know if you can make a demon deck now officially, but hey, this is a freaking. This is a non-legendary. That's notable too. I would say that's definitely noteworthy. And you could even just do it for the reanimation, not get the Doomsday, and then you just draw an extra card every turn, and you have a 6/6 flyer.
Yeah,
it's not terrible,
It's not terrible. Well, and notably too, there are a couple of other effects like this. Like we have the Bringer of the Last Gift or whatever, or the the Living Death on a body. That with these effects these ETBs that are incredibly powerful, Wizards knows what they're doing with these. Because this being a 6/6 flyer was a very intentional, because that justifies them putting 6 as its mana cost. That's because if this thing costs 3 or 4, like even on a 1/1 or like on a sorcery, even with that kind of an effect, people would be cracking it open. Like,
for sure, yeah.
Like it would be much easier to combo with, because it's one of those. If you pull off a crazy mill combo and it involved casting a 6-drop to get there, you've earned it, in my opinion. And like, okay, cool. That said, though, it doesn't say you have to cast it from your hand. And Standard does have a lot of ways to do kind of cheesy casting out of exile or out of your graveyard. Reenact the crime, cast all the hideaway cards. Which granted, most of them are leaving, but Collector's Cage isn't. So that'll still be around post rotation. So I don't know. Maybe there's some way to sneak this out easily off of a Discover trigger or something. Yeah, where actually the other thing, 6-drop, a lot of good Discover is Discover 5. So that was also. Anyway, but I suspect that there are fun ways, whether or not any of them are going to be competitive, or whether we're just in the realm of fun brew theory, janky theory crafting.
Welcome to the MagicJank podcast.
Exactly. That's what we do here.
That is what we do. Yeah. Yeah. I think there's going to be a few ways, or I think some, like some things let you plot cards, like you could plot it.
Ooh.
Something like that. Now that's definitely a thing for the next few years. So we have that going on, and reanimation or cast for free, casting it from exile, like that card, you could actually take the one that your opponent has. What is that? The robbery. Outrageous robbery. Yeah, like imagine you got one from your opponent, and you cast it theirs. That could be, actually a really fun interaction.
Totally.
I know if I took my opponents of that, that would be my goal for the rest of the game, would be to cast that card.
100%.
Whether it worked or not, I'm just like, I'm casting that.
We're doing this.
So no, you're right. Like, it doesn't say cast from your hand, so I think that's probably pretty intentional text, given the abilities and the mechanics that we have in Standard. But awesome card. I think it's going to be great. And like you said, mono black Devotion, and that's why I thought maybe it would be better to reanimate it, because I'd like to maybe do Devotion while I still have cards left in my deck.
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
is there some kind of mass reanimate? Like, could you victimize and grab this and Gary?
That's nasty. Yeah, that's nasty. What is that, like 8 minimum 8?
That's 8 just on those two, not to mention whatever else you have.
Yeah, that's pretty legit. That sounds like fun to me. And then you have let's call it 10, and then you have your Enduring Tenacity on the board, and then they just lose.
Of course, there it is.
There's our OTK. There's our
Love
OTK.
it.
Let's do it.
Oh,
actually,
fantastic.
you could sack the tenacity to the
tenacity to the victimized to
and
bring
it would
these
come
two back.
anyway and still have the devotion. Wow,
that's nasty. I'm so here for it.
We just did something.
We just cracked it. We're in. Let's do this. All right.
So I guess that would be like a historic thing maybe, because I don't know if that would fly in modern.
Historic and timeless. You have Dark Ritual, right? So
timeless, that's true. So you'd have to mill the cards or whatever.
So I'm sure Stitcher Supplier would be involved. Somehow.
That would be fun. That would be fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could see like historic for sure, because you have access to Victimize. And Victimize is like pretty broken for 3 mana. I always thought
it's really
good. But it's just you don't do a ton of that in modern, so like I get it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, cool stuff. But yeah, so no, Duskmourn does look very interesting. The cards that we've seen so far, pretty darn powerful. Funnily enough, prior to Duskmourn coming out, we have Bloomburrow. We're going to be talking a lot more about Bloomburrow in the coming weeks as we get more previews and as we kind of ramp up to the streamer event, which I know is going to be a good time. But we did get a couple of new cards in the preview panel from MagicCon Amsterdam, and let's see, they showed off a new land cycle. Now, we don't necessarily need to break down every single one of them, but they're the uncommon lands, the way that they're going to work here. And this really tells us a lot about how the set is going to be structured definitely for like a limited perspective, right? And the one that I pulled up here is Lilypad Village. Now there's one in every color. And this particular one can tap for a colorless, or it can tap for a blue, but you can only spend this mana on a creature spell. So it provides colored mana, but in a limited capacity. Can provide colorless. We know how reasonable or how relevant that can be as well nowadays. Probably not in standard, but you never know. And then you could pay, in this case, blue tap, surveil 2, activate only if a bird, frog, otter, or rat entered the battlefield under your control this turn. So these lands all have these spell effects, but you can only activate them if a creature of the type or of one of the types that overlaps with this particular color is available. In the case of blue, it's, bird, frog, otter, rat. And the other ones also have other effects that are relevant to that creature type. And you can only activate them if you control one or want to enter the battlefield, or if the effect is targeting, a creature of the appropriate type. And so, I don't know, we've seen spell lands like these before. These ones being monocolor, I think, is a little bit of a bummer. Like, they kind of remind me of the spell lands from Kaldheim. Kaldheim had dual lands that you could active. They always entered tapped, which was a huge knock against them, but they had some extra effect to them. And these are similar, except they're entering untapped, but can only produce a single color, and even then only in certain circumstances.
I think that these are going to be, unless the creatures of the types on these particular cards are just absolute bombs, I don't know if these see much play outside of draft. That's my first impression. Unless unless we have crazy lizards and I get it. They said this is like the furry set, so we're gonna have a lot of different types of creatures. Allegedly, a lot of different types of creatures, like probably like little to no humans.
They actually confirmed no humans to the point where human planeswalkers who actually. Human planeswalkers who planeswalk to Bloomburrow, they actually transform into non-humans. We've seen Ral as an otter already.
That's hilarious.
And allegedly, that's what that was. Mindsculptor is a fox or whatever.
So
right. Okay.
So they are making in-universe magical rules to explain why there are no humans on this plane.
Okay. So they're gonna have that, and it's just so there better be some damn good lizards and some damn good mice and raccoons, whatever, birds, frogs, whatever
for those
you're
bats and frogs.
Listen, I can tell you.
Watch out for those frogs.
Take a look at that Mudflat Village. It says the word bat on it.
It does say
bat ain't going nowhere.
Bat chilling, dude. You want to kill my Deep Cavern bat? I'm going to play it next turn.
Interestingly enough, also, the Lupin Flower Village, the white variant of this land cycle, also says bat on it. So it's interesting if you take a look at all of them that have been previewed. They all say specific creature types. So you can tell the creatures in the set are probably going to be based on those. So, for example, the black and green one both mention squirrel. The preview that they showed for this Golgari legendary squirrel just has like a question mark in the text box, like for people to guess what it might do. Which is like definitely on theme for Chatterfang. Now, I will tell you, I am going to be very disappointed if I don't see a Chatterfang Planeswalker in the set. Because if there's ever a set to do it and give me a Squirrel Planeswalker, it's now. Despark all the other Planeswalkers. Give me a Squirrel that literally has a Planeswalker spark.
Yes.
I would be to the moon. But it's interesting because some of these animal characters are going to have additional creature types on them. The Golgari legendary squirrel that they just showed the picture of is a squirrel warlock, which means it's also an outlaw, and that matters for the Thunder Junction cards that came out.
Sure.
So squirrels that are outlaws. That sounds great.
That's pretty cool.
So I'll be interested to see how these color pairs do go together. I mean, obviously the ones that say like otter on them. We have the otter from Eldraine, right? That was Simic in nature. Well, blue otter, but green spell. But yeah, I'm excited to see what these creature types are going to bring to the table, especially raccoon, because we haven't seen any raccoon cards really before. So that'll be a relatively newer or refurbished creature type.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think the power level on these is going to be pretty good. Like we have seen, one frog druid that they spoiled, sun shower druid, and the cuteness in this art is kind of like it's unfair. Let's be real. Like that's just it's adorable. It shows a small frog in what appears to be some kind of ceremonial garb, raising their hands and like summoning or it seems to be summoning forth rain, which or just maybe just chilling in the rain and just loving it. I don't know, but whatever the case may be, it's an 0/2 for a single green at common. When it enters, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, and you gain 1 life.
Yep.
So you gain a life off of it, and at its base, it's a 1/3 for 1.
Yeah, that's strong.
I mean, that's pretty good, right? Like that, and it plays into counter synergy. I mean, they're giving us a 1-drop frog that can favorably block a Ragavan at common here. I mean, that strikes me as kind of nuts. And on top of that, if you would rather put the counter on something else, you can, and that's fine. Yeah, I think this card is just genuinely strong. And if this is the level of common that we're seeing here, then the power creep continues, or at the very least, we're holding steady on high power standard moving forward, I think.
Absolutely. I think
high power draft sets.
Another one that's going to be crazy. We have a mouse soldier that's a Boros mouse soldier in Mabel, Heir to the Cragflame, and it's a lord, and it does like equipment stuff, which I think is interesting. Because usually when you think mice, you think, well, I guess there are like white ones now, but it's a lot of it like, especially with like I guess rats, more like it was like a blue and black thing. Yeah. But now you have like a Boros mouse, which I think is different. But they keep it on brand flavor wise with the equipment stuff. You know? And then they make it a lord and a 3/3, even just a 3/3 lord for the mice. That I think that would be pretty good in draft too.
Oh, in draft, absolutely. And if there are decent mice, like if there are a couple of good 2-drop playable mice, this is something to consider in standard. I don't know. We'll see. That said, I mean, the idea of doing any kind of Boros aggro deck that's pivoting away from Convoke, barring a Knight Aaron of Eos ban, I can't imagine that happening, but you never know.
I know there is because of all the 4 Meriden stuff. I think there's like a Boros equipment deck that's running around right now. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I've seen a couple people working that. Yeah.
Can you imagine Mabel just like holding on to this big sword of wealth and power, or like sword of once and future, like ready to take the town? Like I'm down for this.
Let's just Embercleave Mabel. And
why not?
Attack with all your mice, get like a 2-mana Embercleave or whatever. There you go.
I'm so here for this. But yeah, Bloomburrow looks like it's going to be fun. We don't have a lot of information yet. Oh, actually, there's another one that I think is noteworthy that I want to call out here. The longstanding tradition of making divination but better continues with Pearl of Wisdom. It's draw 2 cards for 3, 2 and a blue, at sorcery speed, but it costs 1 less to cast if you control an otter.
There we go.
Again, the Eldraine Otter is 1 blue and has prowess. So, like, being able to
Good.
slap that down on the battlefield on turn 1, draw 2 cards on turn 2, attack for 2 sounds nice to me.
I think
is there going to be some kind of Teamer Otter prowess deck? Because I'm kind of totally here for it.
That would be
you
something.
know, you have like Slick Sequence, right? That was recently printed that cares if you drew 2 cards, right, this turn or something like this. I don't know.
Oh, if you like,
the wrong card.
There are some that are predicated around drawing 2 or 3 cards.
Second spell this turn or something like this. Yeah.
2
damage. If you cast another spell this turn, draw a card. Yeah. So like cheap damage dealers, draw you cards, prowess.
Yeah.
Slick shot show off might not be an otter, but it's falls into this category.
It's just good enough.
Yeah.
And you're talking about the Simic Otter from Eldraine. There was also an Izzet Otter in Eldraine as well. The that had prowess, the Mage's Familiar or whatever the name was.
And there's a blue-white one also, isn't there? Like if you didn't cast a spell, it gets a counter. Or is that one just white?
I think that's from the squirrel you're thinking about. That's that is
an otter. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one, what I like about it is I think it's going to be really good in draft, and I think they're going to give you plenty of otters to use in draft, and it's going to be one of your like you said, the commons that are just like crazy powerful now.
Yeah.
Where like some drafters are saying like uncommons are the new rares, and then we work towards commons being the new rares maybe at some point, and start to wonder because we look at some of the draft power from this set. Is this going to be more of a draft set? I'm starting to wonder because Duskmourn, at face value upon first glance, just seems to have way more power level. And why do you even show us Duskmourn cards if you didn't feel like some of these cards that you were bringing out from Bloomburrow were maybe going to be a tad underwhelming for people who were looking for something to do in Constructed?
I don't know if that's I don't know. I don't know exactly what the marketing plan was. It'll be very interesting to see, the reception for Bloomburrow. Because I think Bloomburrow is, actually, to be honest, I think part of it is just that Bloomburrow is so, there's so much anticipation already. People are already incredibly hyped for it.
Sure.
And so they don't need to boost that. They know. And whereas Duskmourn, I don't know about you guys, but like up until a week ago, I didn't really know what Duskmourn was. Like I knew it was coming.
I didn't know when it was coming or really much of anything.
And like they said modern horror, and I was like, what does that mean? Like what is modern horror? Like I know, okay, so like are they trying to do some kind of Lovecraftian thing? Because they've kind of already done that. Like between Merit and the Eldrazi, they've got that covered. Like, I never would have guessed that they actually just straight up meant like analog horror, like the kind of horror that can only exist because of VHS technology. But that's definitely what they're leaning into, and like that aesthetic, and to the point where they have static is part of like the malevolent force in that world. Like, it's kind of wild that they were willing to take that shot and actually go there, but they are anyway. And now we know that, like,
I think also where you were saying about Bloomburrow having enough hype on its own, I think
they needed hype on Duskmourn. I think Duskmourn was going to fall flat if people didn't get their appetites whetted for it.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I think part of the reason that Bloomburrow also had the hype is I think just people being so ready for rotation, and you just know like, okay, this is when rotation's happening, so it's like, okay, here, we're doing it, and it's Bloomburrow, and I think it's to the point where like some people are just going to take whatever's in this set as long as some cards rotate. They're like, I don't even care if this set's good. I just need the rotation that bad that you know what I mean. And
that was kind of my feeling going into Dominaria United. Like, Dominaria is cool, but it's the closest we have to like vanilla for Magic. I'm like, whatever, Dominaria is fine. Let's go back to Dominaria. I don't care. Give me that rotation. Hook it to my veins. What do you got?
And then we got Shoulder and everything was.
And then they're like Sheldred. Like,
it was great.
You want that rotation? We'll give you the rotation. Yeah.
It ended up being super fun. I loved it. It was great. But yeah.
Fantastic.
So there's one other change to I shouldn't say it, but there's one other new thing coming to Standard that's a change.
Yes,
right?
there's a new set coming. Because we clearly have not talked about enough new sets.
Clearly didn't have enough info on Standard over the
No. So Standard, well, here I'm always complaining that that Standard isn't changing frequently enough, and here we are. So we're going through a gauntlet right now where it's going to be a ton of Standard releases, kind of one after the other, and they actually announced a new set that is going to be coming out in November. This is just a surprise, gotcha, Standard set, and it is called Magic Foundations, and it is intended to be a set that is good for new players to get a kind of a handle on the game, and it is going to be legal in Standard for an extended period of time. So it is actually going to live in a timeline outside of the normal Standard rotation, and they've confirmed that it will be legal at least until 2029.
That surely isn't going to be confusing for new players.
Not at all, of course. And so yeah, and they've shown us just a couple of cards from it, but they're bringing in some old favorites that we haven't seen in Standard in a long time. So they're reprinting a couple of classics that we haven't had into Standard, and then they're also introducing some more. And I think the idea, and even the name Foundation, you can build a deck leveraging some of these pieces. And those pieces will not rotate, even if you kind of have to adjust the deck a little bit here and there. And that, I can see the appeal from a paper perspective. If I want to roll up to Friday Night Magic, week in, week out, I don't want to spend a lot of money, and I want to make sure that the core of my deck is going to be solid. That's great. I want to give me a foundation to build upon.
Love it.
Cool. I love the idea. And when we say that they're using kind of classic designs that are pretty foundational, we mean things like Llanowar Elves.
Thank God.
I don't
listen. It's been how long that we haven't had like a Llanowar Elves card in Standard? You can't count the Lore Keeper that was in Lost Caverns of Ixalan because it only counted for Dino spells. We haven't had Birds of Paradise in Standard. We haven't had Llanowar Elves in a while. I think the most recent iteration that we had of this was Gilded Goose from way back. There's question if Llanowar Elves / Elvis Mystic was too powerful in like Pioneer. But I kind of like that we've got this coming back to Standard. I know I was talking about this a couple weeks. I was like, man, can they give us Llanowar Elves in one of these sets? Not only do they give it to us in one of these sets, but now for an extra time period.
You and I were the same. Yeah.
Which honestly is great for Standard. I like the idea of Foundations in the sense that I can take a new Magic player, bring you to the LGS, have you buy this product, say this product is going to be good, I got to keep you in Standard for 5 years. So here's some recent cards that came out, put a deck together, see what you can do. And then even after rotation will happen from the older sets, you still got your core around. To be honest, I think it's the best marketing strategy to get more people to play Standard.
Yeah. That
they've made in quite some time. Yeah. Because the next thing they got to do after this is more Standard events. Please.
Agreed.
Please.
Well, and I find it so funny that you were talking about Llanowar Elves, because I think I was just last week prior to this announcement complaining, like commiserating with my Twitch chat about why is mono green so bad? It's like we just don't have a 1-drop dork. Green just needs a 1-drop dork to keep up right now. Like there's just no way. And and like within days this gets announced. Like really, man?
Hello, I can play my Pelucranos on turn 2 at 4 or 5 reach.
Perfect.
Great.
Now we're in business. Yep, absolutely.
Or you have your choice to play better early interaction to bolt the burb. Like in whatever iteration that is.
Allow me to make the complaint that I really don't think that we needed Day of Judgment here. 5 years afterwards celebrating the rotating out of heavily used white board wipe.
Depopulate is rotating out, yeah.
Depop, farewell. I really don't know if we needed to bring back Day of Judgment, and I don't know that we needed it for 5 years. I mean, weren't you guys just going to print 2% anyway?
Right, exactly. So imagine getting Day of Judgment for 5 years and saying, "Here you go. You've got to." They're going to give us a couple months off. There's not going to be a 4-mana Wrath.
Yeah, that is
right
true.
for Bloomburrow or Duskmourn because they really won't print it. They'll print 5. Yeah.
We'll get like
5 mana or 6 mana farewell effects.
Yeah.
And then they'll say, "Here's Foundations. Here Day of Judgment. You got it for 5 years. You had a good couple months off.
You had a good run, kid."
We do have no witnesses in standard, but nobody's running that right now.
Right. Because depopulate. Yeah.
It's effectively but
no witnesses might be the next choice then.
But exactly. Like once Depop leaves, then no witnesses all of a sudden becomes a 4-drop sweeper that is an option. But then you're giving your opponent a clue, which you're giving them a resource. Whereas Day of Judgment is like, nah, we're just resetting.
Because Depop let you draw a card too if you had a multicolored creature.
That's
so
right.
If you had a multicolored creature, yes.
There were conditions, and now this is just unconditional. A card that we haven't seen. I don't know the last time it was actually in standard. A while ago.
This one was a while ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Day of Judgment is clearly they've done a couple of reskins that I don't think have gotten a lot of publicity as reskins per se. But Day of Judgment is clearly just a reprint of Wrath of God, except it doesn't have the regeneration text because they're not printing regeneration on anything.
Right.
And it doesn't have clearly biblical imagery associated on the card. It's a little more subtle. They masked it a little bit.
That's true.
Which they've done that with a couple of other cards as well. Most notably, the card Remove Soul became Essence Scatter. And I think that was a pretty deliberate choice just to kind of make the wording a little more secular, which I'm cool with. I get that, you know.
I guess
so no problem. But this is like saying Wrath of God is legal in standard for the next 5 years.
Yeah, it's basically Like, can I get Damnation then, or can I get your non-biblical version of Damnation?
Right, like
whatever you would like to call that.
Yeah,
I would like this to be legal for 5 years, also, please.
Right. Yeah, it's
maybe
pretty
we'll
early.
Get lucky and see Languish. I would like to see Languish come back.
Languish, Ritual of Soot. You know, any one of those.
Ooh, that was a good one.
Because Path of Peril is rotating, so like if we could get a Ritual of Soot, I think that would be something. So yeah, can we throw us a bone? The 9 Lives Familiar, it's a cute cat and everything, but I don't see myself playing it. So that's the they showed us. Yeah. Actually, they didn't show us a red card. I don't know if you guys have access to more spoilers, but out of the 5 that I see, I don't see a red card. Oddly enough,
yeah, I don't think they did. Yeah, but yeah,
I see the Anthem and Omniscience, and
yeah, and some of these cards make sense, I think, and like 9 Lives Familiar being like kind of a starter deck caliber sacrifice fodder thing.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sure.
That's fine. Yeah.
But it's not. This isn't going to see competitive play. Like it's just not. Meanwhile, like the Anthem of Champions is 9 Lives Familiar. It's by the way, 9 Lives Familiar for people who aren't familiar. It's a 1/1 for 3. It enters the battlefield with 8 revival counters on it. It's a cat with 9 lives. This thing can die 9 times before it will stay dead. You know, it's kind of the idea. If it gets exiled once, tough luck. And if when it enters the battlefield, if you didn't cast it, it doesn't have any of the counters, so it's just a 1/1. Yeah, and you can also proliferate it and do some fun things with that. But I would be, unless there is some kind of card that just cares about a lot of counters entering the battlefield at one time, that this could somehow trigger.
All will be one.
Yeah, I guess all be one. I mean, all right, there might be something there. But if I'm doing that, then why would I do that over Millennium Calendar or something? I feel like there's probably other options. Or
isn't it like Boros the best shell for that? I think for probably. The all one decks. So I don't know if that's like a reason to run black, but that's that's the kind
of synergy that this could provide. That could make this decent. Yeah. But aside from that, like they clearly want it to just be like sack fodder, and I think it's just you don't want 3-drop sack fodder. That's
3 mana sack fodder is like no.
Yeah, no.
When you think about the other 3-drops that are black cards, Karavik.
So many better options. Yep.
The rat. There's so much. Yeah. So I don't know, but I could see someone. I could see it being a good learning tool.
Exactly. Yep.
For someone learning how to do the sacrifice mechanics. Like that could be legit. And I don't know if this set will be draftable or not. That could maybe be a thing. Your 1/1 comes back 8 times. That's actually decent in draft, I feel like. Because you're just it's almost like you have like an infinite blocker, which
an infinite chump blocks. It could
so you're just like
pretty
you're
good.
just like using this cat as like a human, as like a feline shield, which is kind of messed up, but whatever.
Feline shield, that's a name. All right, that's an upcoming deck name. Yep. All right.
How dare you disparage my cat like that?
I was like, I kind of like cringed myself. I was like, I don't want to ever think of a cat like that. But like,
right, it's kind of messed up. But but yeah, the other card that got spoiled, we mentioned it, the Anthem of Champions. So this is an enchantment. Creatures you control go +1/+1. Glorious Anthem style effect, except this one costs green-white. 2 mana Glorious Anthem. There we go. Honestly, I don't have a whole lot to say about it. Just, yep, that looks good.
Yeah.
That's just spot on. It's exactly where you want to be. And this is the kind of thing that I expect to see from a beginner product. Like this is a clean design. The power level is good enough that maybe there are some kind of Selesnya go wide decks. Maybe, like right now, I know Bant Toxic probably doesn't want this kind of a stat boost necessarily, but maybe there will be a Selesnya aggro deck in the future that can take advantage of this. Maybe some kind of humans package or something. I don't know, but like it could be really strong. It's a good effect if you've got 3-4 bodies online, give them all a boost. That's a big deal. So I don't know. This card just looks like a nice clean design.
I love to see cards like this with like the White Virtue in Standard, right? Where you get to play these tokens, maybe a little Naya tokens thing going on with the Recruiter. It having good mana makes this much better. And even with rotation, we're gonna have good mana.
Yeah.
Assuming they don't print any more other better pieces of mana for us to work with. But Anthem effects and tokens decks go hand in hand and are probably easy foundations, pun intended, for newer players.
There you go.
Play a bunch of tokens and go wide,
Yeah. I gotta say, the name Foundations is really clean. They did a good job picking that one, I think.
Yeah. I think it's like an overall, like let's make up for the fact that we're not printing core sets anymore. And then they gave it like a new 100%. Name that kind of lines up with that idea, but isn't just core. So I think Foundations is good. And that's also makes you feel like, oh, I'm a new player. I should probably start with the thing that says Foundations. It makes you feel like if you feel lost, like it feels like maybe, and you see that, oh, maybe I should gravitate towards that and check that out. So I think that's a good design there for sure.
Yeah. So the last card that they spoiled, is Omniscience a foundational card for Magic? I don't know how I feel about this one.
Listen, let me just say this. I am a fan of casting large mana cost cards. I'm a fan of cheating large mana cost cards into play. I am a fan of them reprinting a card that was once a lot of money into a standard set to make it easily accessible. Now, that being said,
I'm with you. Yep.
If folks even still need to buy older product and they are just getting into standard and they want their hands on Omniscience, them reprinting Omniscience in the Wilds of Eldraine bonus sheet was super, super smart if they knew that this was coming. Because now more folks have access to those cards. And I can take a player I've just introduced to Foundations and say, if you enjoy this card, let me show you this other set that also has like pretty cool enchantments in it. Or you can also pull this card in this newest set in an older set. And get you more standard cards for your current deck. It's superb marketing. Now, putting this card into standard for 5 years gives you a lot of design space to say, how can I cheat this out in standard? But the question is that healthy? Because when this card resolves, it's game over unless your opponent has removal for it. Right?
If you built your deck right, that's game. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, can Black get targeted enchantment removal now? since we're doing that.
They should reprint Feed the Swarm.
Yeah, there we go. Give me a feed. I will lose 10 life to make you not do that.
Yep.
I'll literally.
Well, if the alternative is to just lose, then lose 10 life.
Yeah. I'll do it.
Up.
I'll do it all day, especially if Shoulder's going to be around for a minute.
Yeah, because the moment Omniscience shows up, it makes all of your spells free. And the moment all your spells are free, all you need to do is draw cards. If you can get access to cards, and so you just build a whole bunch of card draw spells into your deck that look kind of lame if this doesn't show up.
Yeah,
and you just blitz this sucker out, and then all of a sudden you play your entire deck pretty much. We've seen this thing pop off. If you've never played against Show and Tell and Timeless, that's the place where it's kind of running roughshod right now. Well, not as much since Grief showed up, but it is still out there, and. Yeah, it hits the field, and your opponent just sort of has it. And if they cast it, they just win. And in Standard right now, we have cards like Abuelo's Awakening or Repair and Recharge. There are a lot of ways to reanimate an enchantment right now. Yeah. It's not hard. Yeah.
Some are rotating out, but we are going to remain with ways to cheat it out quicker.
Yeah. Yeah, like Invoke Justice was great. We don't have that anymore. Or we will not have that when this is available.
Yeah.
But still,
you're right. Abuelo's is an interesting one for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then all the mill options that you have to, So we'll have to see. I agree with you that maybe it's not a foundational card, and even the decks that did run it, they were kind of like fringe decks. It was never a popular deck.
Yeah. Right.
There was never a deck that was like 20% of the meta that cheats out Omniscience. These are like janky, permanent reanimator decks.
What did you say?
Janky.
Welcome to the MagicJank podcast.
Let's go.
It's like stuff that we would mess around, that we all might mess around.
Yeah.
I don't like it because it's too much blue for me, but but it's not. This is like. Is it like, and maybe people just don't even play it that much, and they're just like, whatever.
Right.
Or maybe one day there's going to be a way to make it relevant that they see somewhere down the road. And maybe that's why they're like, I think maybe it could be something where like you throw stuff in there that just like keeps your options open, maybe something like that.
Sure.
And
I mean, giving new players the huge thing where they think, when am I ever going to cast this? And then and then the veteran friends gets to have the invincible moment. It's like, oh, that's the neat part. You don't. And that's a fun moment when you realize, like, wait, I can do these weird things to cheat this thing into play and have this crazy powerful effect on the board. Like that is fun. And that discovery moment is something that every new player should experience, even if they don't latch onto that the way that honestly I did. I'm big into that as well. I love cheating out huge things, but having access to this specific card, like it opens the door to some really tiresome grind fest. Like when an Atraxa gets cheated out or gets ramped into, the game's going to be over soon because this threat is now stabilized. A lot of cards have been drawn, and we're moving toward you have gained a significant advantage in a game of Magic. The moment that you resolve an Omniscience onto the board, your opponent just stops playing Magic. Like, they just watch you play Magic and end the game again if you built your deck correctly. So it's I'm glad that it's getting reprinted. I'm on board for 1 million new copies of Omniscience in the wild for Commander and Janky Brews. But I have a feeling that if there is a way to consistently get this out, and if people find a way to make this competitive in Standard, it's going to be miserable. Yeah,
I think
that's really good.
I think it's like maybe like one of those like you could intentionally throw some trap cards in there, trap cards. You know what I mean? In the sense of like, this is like it's a scam. Like it tricks you into playing. You shouldn't actually play it, and that could be part of the learning experience for a new player too.
Sure.
Because part of it is like part of learning how to make a deck is building some really bad decks.
Oh, 100%. Well,
I'm sure we've all been at that point, and we still probably all build bad decks
every now and then. Yeah. And honestly, that's what I think 9 Lives Familiar is. I think it's a great example of a card that reads like it should be good in a certain shell, but it's just too expensive for what you get.
Yeah.
And I think people will realize that.
I don't disagree with that.
So but you're right. That is a valuable. That's a valuable tool. And if every single card that was ever printed was hyper efficient, then it really doesn't Yeah. Well, actually, then all that happens is our definition of efficient changes, and we get super narrow, and that's
True.
a nightmare. I don't even want to think about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Foundations coming in November, and I'm glad that it's that a new player friendly product is being designed to be an on ramp into standard. I think that's a great place to be, and I think that that's something that the game's been missing recently.
Definitely solid. Yeah, I totally agree.
All in all, I'm hyped to see what else comes out of it, and I'm going to be watching that set with a lot of interest to see how it changes the game moving forward.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah,
cool. Well, that covers pretty much all we wanted to talk about. There was one event that happened at the Pro Tour that we kind of were in a blitz to get into the new topics, but I did want to kind of circle back and touch on this because it's important. It's a big deal. It's happening right now. So going right before announcing the topic competitors during the Pro Tour, William Jensen actually took the mic and gave a moment to honor kind of one of the greatest players of all time, period. Like one of the finest competitive Magic players that we've ever seen in Kai Buddha. Because I'm not positive I'm pronouncing his name right. Kai, I'm so sorry. Because he's an absolute legend.
Everybody just mainly calls him Kai.
Kai is one of the best of all time. Won his first Pro Tour in 96 or whatever. Like anyway, he's been in the game for forever.
Yeah.
And has just been fantastic. And we got some bad news apparently that he actually is battling cancer right now, and things aren't looking good. So we don't know all the details, but that's not necessarily our business. But we just want to extend, all of our well wishes, thoughts, for him and his loved ones right now. And I want to give a huge thank you to Wizards of the Coast for taking a second and honoring him there. And also, there is an annual Player of the Year award that is given out, to honor exceptional competitors each year. And Kai has actually won it 4 times. And moving forward, it will actually be known as the Kai Buddha Player of the Year award. And I think that is beautiful. I am so glad they're doing that. So, yeah. So, in explaining this to my non-Magic playing, family members who do watch the National Football League, it's like he's our Walter Payton, or the Man of the Year award is, it's similar situation. And it's a big deal, and it's being codified. So yeah.
I like that we have enough history now in Magic to kind of get to that point where you can name awards after famous people in the said space, you know what I mean, and people who deserve to be remembered, such as Kai. Another kind of silver lining, and I mean, it's hard to have a silver lining when we're talking about life and death like this, but Kai actually, because I guess he didn't actually make this Pro Tour, or either that, or he didn't make top 8, and then he didn't do well enough to qualify for the next one. So he played at a PTQ today on the last day of Magic Con Amsterdam and won it.
Of course he did.
So so Kai is gonna be
Oh, Carla, I think you're on mute. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think Carla muted.
Oh, sorry. I was saying that it's kind of just desserts because he's known for being someone who converts on Sundays, right?
I heard that.
Does really well. Very well respected player of the Magic community. I mean, I can always remember growing up and playing the game, and whether it was on coverage of some sort or being at an event and just hearing BDM was always. Kai this, Kai that, and this is the person you want to watch playing Magic in order to, one, gain knowledge on how to play the game, but also is just an enjoyable player to watch. If there's ever someone you want to watch, take notes. This is what you should be doing. It's to watch Kai. So, and being around and having time to immortalize him in the game, in the Player of the Year, award that they give out. while he is with us. I'm sure one was great for Kai to see in person, but two, I can't imagine being like Huey Jensen up there and like talking about this. I'm sure it has to just be like a hard subject to talk about such a dear friend. You know what I mean?
Agreed. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, that was. I mean, I think they definitely did right by him, and now he will have a legacy. He's officially larger than life, which that's not everybody gets to do that. So I definitely respect it. I love it.
No, and I would recommend actually going back to the coverage videos if you get a chance and watch the announcement, because like they cut around to all the pros, these people who have been aspiring to be professional Magic players for so long, and have like this is clearly something they've been focusing on, and they're very tuned in. There was not a dry eye in that room.
Oh, dude,
man.
Oh,
yeah. It was something. Yeah. So.
That's really cool. Well, anyway, it's good to see that they, do things to honor their players. I think that's important for, especially for someone who's given so much. So definitely a lot of respect there.
Yeah. No, and Kai absolutely deserves it. He's been nothing but a positive influence on this community in this game. So
yeah.
Amazing stuff. Awesome. All right. So sorry to end on kind of a somber note, although one tradition that we have here at the MagicJank podcast that is relatively recent, that we missed once and Damien gave me a hard time for it, is we've been doing a question of the week, where at the end of each show, we've been throwing out kind of a random thought experiment question to kind of get some banter going, so that you can kind of learn a little bit more about us, the way we see the game, the way we think about it, maybe get our kind of game design juices flowing, just have a little bit of fun at the end of things, to just kind of leave everybody with a smile, hopefully. And I have to be honest, I don't actually have a question in the chamber. I could come up with one if need be, but I don't know, do either of you guys have something in mind as far as a fun little
I would say,
sorry to put you on the spot like this.
Considering I went to too many Gamescom this weekend, obviously we got to encounter a bunch of gamers who were definitely trying new things out of their comfort zone, or having a chance to, engage in multiple hobbies while they were there. And so, we're all Magic players, but if you had one other game or hobby to participate in regularly that you thoroughly enjoy, like what is your, for example, when I'm done streaming, you think I would be tired, I want to go to bed because I have the later slot.
You play WoW, don't you?
I would play WoW, or I've been playing other games at night with some other folks after stream for an hour, because believe it or not, it helps wind my brain down.
Okay, sure.
So
I get that.
What is that other game for you that you either to participate in, or is a form of self-care for you?
I would say for me, especially right now, it's Diablo.
Okay.
Okay.
Pretty big on Diablo, and if you see me stream, sometimes I also stream it if I just don't feel like playing Magic one night. I just like the idea of leveling up your character. It's something that you work on, and it's what I think what I like about it is it's easy to multitask, in the sense of I can just talk to my friends that we're in the party with, while we're just killing a huge monster. We can just be talking about something completely different, because a lot of I don't want to say it's mindless, but it's it's meant to be something that you can just kind of you just run through it. So you can kind of you can just be chatting about anything while you do it, and it's a way to just talk to your friends, but while you're still doing something. So lately, especially with the new season of it, I've been having a really good time with Diablo, actually. So I would say right now that is my game. I don't play any. Well, I guess if I could choose one that I haven't gotten into yet, I would choose. I'd always wanted to get into Flesh and Blood.
Okay.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah. As another I'd like to try to be somewhat competitive in another TCG if I could. So I think that might be something. If I could do that, I've heard that Flesh and Blood actually has better payouts than Magic. So that's noteworthy too.
I mean, I've heard that as well. I haven't done deep research on it, but yeah,
me too. Me too.
That's cool. Yeah, I dig it. For me, I do also play a lot of video games. It's funny because I stream almost exclusively Magic. Like very rarely will I play anything else on stream. But yeah, there is something about playing something offline too. I don't think a lot of people realize, like, you play video games all day. Why are you still playing video games? Like trust me, I don't have to talk and I can just focus. Also, when the lights are off, the monitor looks so much better. Anyway.
Oh yeah, dude. Oh yeah.
But it's all part of the deal. But for me, my big game right now, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Baldur's Gate 3. I'm still on it. I know a lot of the hype has passed, but the reality is that game is just amazing. And I'm a big D&D nerd. I'm sorry?
You can keep going. Isn't there like a bunch of different endings?
There are tons. That's the thing. Is like there are so many decision points you can make throughout the game, and if you know what's going to happen, you can metagame it in weird ways. Like there's one point where if you're playing a certain a certain mode with a certain thing going on, like one of the characters dies during a set piece, but if you go back and like knock them out, which you have no reason to do otherwise, right before that set piece happens, they don't die. And then and so like they'll show up later when normally they wouldn't. Like you can do weird stuff like that, and you can experience that game a ton of different ways. Like, oh, what happens if I side with this person? What happens? And you can go full evil too. Like they let you fully align with the bad guys, and you can just try to take over the world. Like you can do that if you want.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah, so it's one of those. I've put in like almost 400 hours, and there are still builds and still ideas that I want to try. And you can also do multiplayer. So exactly what you're talking about, the idea of getting together with some buddies, just kind of just talking smart. And like I was doing a campaign with started a multiplayer campaign with a couple of other folks who had already played before. We were all playing weird builds we've never done, and we were just totally Mystery Science Theater 3000ing the cutscenes because we'd all seen them before. So we're just like we're just ribbing them, giving them a hard time. It's a blast. So that game, for being a narrative single player experience, it is shockingly replayable. That's cool. Yeah. So I've really enjoyed that. I've also been playing Deep Rock Galactic recently as another just social game, which you are mining asteroids as dwarves with guns. It's
hell yeah.
It's actually shockingly fun. It is exactly as cool as that sounds.
Yeah. That's dope. It's different.
Yeah. But yeah,
that's awesome.
Honestly, just because people I know were like, "Hey, do you want to do this?" It's like, I don't know. I get to play games with like you guys. Like you guys are cool, sure. Like
like, that's how I got into Diablo. So yeah, it totally makes sense.
Yeah, and it's fun. And again, being able to do it off stream and just kind of chill. Yeah, which is funny because actually sometimes I'll join other people's streams as they are playing it, but I'm just on voice. Yeah, and I'm not having to carry.
Oh yeah,
and that's nice.
Sure. Those times are beautiful. Yes,
it's delightful.
I've done that with Fortnite before. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
It's great. Yeah, just being one of the voices and not having to be the guy. It's a good time. It's a good way to unwind. Yeah. But yeah, no, thank you. That was a great question. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, that was awesome. I'm glad you asked that.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So with that, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate you. We will be back next week. On our way out, is there anything coming up that you guys want to promote? Let people know where you are, what you're doing.
I might be at SCGCon Baltimore, so maybe you'll see some stuff from that.
Ooh, excellent.
I just gotta see if I can get my modern deck assembled in the next 4 weeks here.
There's a modern event,
there's a big modern event, and I think there's some Pioneer stuff, so I might just go play Pioneer if nothing else. So might be doing that, and then obviously definitely SCGCon in October, but that's a little further away. And then modern RCQ season, maybe I'll try to qualify for an RC, playing some modern.
Heck yeah, man. Yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
Only thing I really have coming up, I mean, I might be at Baltimore also, but it is also Bloomburrow pre-release weekend, and I really like to do those streams from my LGS. But on Saturday, July 20th, I'll actually be doing another charity stream for Games for Love, so benefiting, game stations for children in hospitals. So
that's awesome.
On the 20th, it's going to be another 10+ hour stream, and hopefully we continue on that trajectory in reaching our charity goals. So yeah, it's gonna be a good time.
Yeah, that sounds like fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very cool. And yeah, I'm doing the normal streaming thing at the places, and we all have normal streaming hours, and the links for those are in the description of this video or podcast, wherever you're tuning in. And so definitely go click the links, check us out, drop the follows, the subscriptions, whatever it's called on those particular platforms. And thank you, everybody. We appreciate you, gentlemen. Thanks for joining me. And we'll be back next week. Later, everybody.
Take care.
Later.